Hi there, my name is Oisin Robbins. I'm an actor and a writer. I'm from Offaly, and I'm also the founder of Beluga Theatre.
Thanks very much, Oisin, and thanks for joining us, or me even. So Beluga Theatre has been part of GTF, well, 1 year in a row. This would have been 2 years in a row. You started with Marty Moncrief, The Teddy Bear Thief, which was a great hit, and you were due to bring The Little Beach House to us this year. Tell us a bit about The Little Beach House, where it came from, and what it is.
Yeah, so it was great to actually come back again this year, well, as we were supposed to, with The Little Beach House, which is a show about a person who decides out of nowhere to bring his wardrobe to the beach and set up a new home and a new life with it. So the show would explore his interactions with the beach house, which it became, which is pretty magical, and the environment around, so the beach, the water, and also the nearby community and the interactions that would have happened there. The show itself is essentially about home and what home means to people and the different ways people can have a home or make a home, which was something that really was inspiring for me to develop, because it actually comes from a real story. So the Little Beach House wasn't just something that popped into my head. It's something that I took inspiration from the real person, all the way over in Denmark. His name was Christian Jonsen, and he was nicknamed the Skowman. He lived in the first half of the 20th century, and he was called the Skowman because Skow means wardrobe and man means, well, man. And I wanted to find out a little bit more about what would make someone step out of the mainstream of society and live completely differently, and how do they exist, and how do they exist with the locals. So I was lucky enough to get support from Creative Europe, and I actually went over to the place where the original Skowman lived. Yeah, it was a really great experience. I went over there and I partnered with Sorcha Museum, and they were so good to me. They set me up with like a workspace. They gave me access to everything they had on them. So I spent a good bit of time just going through the archives and collecting all of the material that was available on this really fascinating person. And I had interviews with people who had met him, people who had heard about him. And I went into an after-school project to see how I could tease out creative ideas with the children there, because I really wanted to make this a show that was relevant to young audiences. And yeah, it was a great time. And at the end of it, I presented the work publicly in the Stoa Museum, and I had a chat with the audience. Some people in the audience actually had met him, it turned out. Others also knew stuff about him. So it was really just a really rich, enjoyable process. It was so interesting finding out about this person that I actually spent a good bit of time just researching him as if like I was a historian or something. And I forgot all about the creative process. And I just wanted to know more and more and more. But in a case like this, there's only so much you're going to know. And I even went out to his where he was buried, in a nearby gravesite. And what's written on his tombstone is there are runes that cannot be deciphered. And that really resonated with me, because I tried my best to decipher everything about his life.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's one of those things where you're not going to find out the entire reason why someone decides to live differently, but you find out enough, and then you put it into play, and you put some questions up there, and you just mess around with them. So yeah, that was the starting point, and that project was called Project Skowman, and it's still an ongoing thing. It's been separated into two strands. You have the strand for young audiences, which I'm developing a certain type of material for, and then there's another one which is more general. And so it's like two little roads that I'm trying to navigate, and it's a lot of fun, you know.
It sounds amazing, and the idea of all of the pieces of information that you can find and the stories that people have and the experiences that people have, and yet for there to be gaps in the knowledge kind of allows for, it's a really rich, like, creative ground to be working with, you know, to have both historical artifacts and archival documents in front of you, and then to have anecdotal evidence and people's stories and memories and understandings of this person, and yet for them to be still a bit of a mystery. There's something really, really rich and kind of exciting about all of that.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what a massive part of the whole process was discovering that, yeah, between the anecdotes and the, you know, cold hard facts is the space to create your story, you know, because it, you know, like, I did draw a huge amount of inspiration, but at the end of the day, you know, you want to create something that, you know, you have ideas for, and so that's where it became. It became like a marriage of what his life was and his ideas and stuff that I could imagine on stage and narratives that I'd want to explore further, because, you know, even though he lived, you know, so far away through completely different times. He was there when the Germans invaded. They had bunkers all around him, and he just continued to live his style. You bring that here, you bring it to the, you know, you bring it out to Connemara, you bring it to the Midlands of Ireland, and there are people who choose to live differently. So it's really, really relevant. And this idea of what home means and what happens when someone says, I don't want to live traditionally. We have so many examples of that here in Ireland. I was like, this feels really, really relevant to our society as well. And so to create a narrative that you're really excited about it was just a whole bunch of fun, really.
Yeah, it sounds great. And it sounds like, you know, that the idea, like the image of a man in a wardrobe on a beach surrounded by German bunkers, it really, like, you can see that in your mind's eye, but it's also, it speaks to a lot of resilience, I think, and a lot of determination, and, you know, really saying, as you say, you know, I'm not going to live like everybody else. But not only that, even when everything is, you know, suggesting that maybe I should live in a house in a town, I'm going to stick to where I am. How long did he stay on the beach, or, you know, how long did that last?
I'm very glad I made some notes because I can correct.
Testing you now on your studies.
Yeah. Well, there was a time when I was in Denmark, I could list this off, you know, instantly. But I suppose since a bit of time has passed, it's good to have my notes with me.
Yeah.
But he arrived there at 35 years of age.
Okay.
So it wasn't an instant thing. He had worked, he had spent a lot of time in different places, and then at 35 years of age, he wheeled his wardrobe down to the beach, and he lived there for the rest of his life. He lived there till he was 77 years of age, which is remarkable.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So he went down there and he just decided this is the place. And then, you know, I'd be collecting certain quotes. You know, journalists would have went up to him and would have asked him, you know, why are you living here? Oh, I don't know. It's beautiful here. Oh, yeah, that's a great reason to live here. And he just said, oh, well, I actually just stopped here because it felt right. So it's just trying to get grips onto the way he saw things, and you get little nuggets that you connect with, because what he does, I suppose, is he holds up a mirror to the way you're living, and then you can kind of say, oh yeah, that, you know, I do live like that, and maybe I'd want to take a bit more from what you're doing, which is like, you know, independent thinking, and, you know, like just deciding to say, oh, well, actually I prefer this, even though no one else is doing this, especially in that time as well. But so he arrived there around 1917, around 1918. Yeah.
And I can imagine, what age group is the play geared towards?
6 to 8 years of age.
Yeah, so I can imagine that they responded really enthusiastically to it when you workshopped it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was actually so good for me to be able to test it directly with that age group and just hear what they liked, what they responded to, what they weren't so interested in, and kind of shaping something along that. Yeah, that was really crucial for me to figure out, okay, this, like, you know, this part, which is geared for young audiences, needs certain elements. But yeah, they also really loved the Scowman, the wardrobe man. Yeah.
Great. So the project's still kind of ticking along.
Yeah, it
There's
is.
hope yet that we might see the little beach house.
Yeah, thankfully,
Good.
thankfully there is. There's still embers in that one, and it kind of like it as it's evolving. It's kind of existing as a show for young audiences, and it's also something that I want to workshop without a certain age in mind, just to
Great.
see
Yeah.
where that goes. And that's been great. I have a residency with the Pavilion in Dublin, which
Amazing.
was supposed to happen a couple of months ago, but they've been great. You know, they've responded to everything that's going on really remarkably, and I should be in with them hopefully at some point in the autumn. So I'll keep it going because I think it's just too interesting a story for me to just let pass by. And maybe next year the little beach house will finally see the stage.
Yeah, hopefully. It's an exciting one, and I, as a history nerd, love the idea of a show for young audiences that has such depth in it, in terms of the research that you've put in, and having traveled to the space and being there, and even seeing what's on his gravestone. All of those are, it's really there's a lot of depth to it and a lot of nuance, which is brilliant, because the work that we do for young audiences has so much power in it. So that's really exciting. So I hope we get to see it on stage soon. Tell me a bit about the work that you're doing at the moment with the Borders project.
Yeah, the Borders project started in Seoul in Korea in January of this year, just before the notion of foreign travel was completely eradicated. And it was great. I got to go over there for a festival for young audiences, Acetage Korea Winter Festival. I flew out there with the help of an Arts Council Travel and Training Award, which was great to get, because when I was over there, I was part of a program for a platform for young audiences, where I got to network with artists and producers from all over the world, and we got to see shows that you don't get the opportunity to see every day. And that was great, seeing different styles of theatre and chatting with people who had different influences and perspectives. And through all this networking and chatting and exchanging ideas, we struck up a conversation, myself and a Malaysian theatre maker who's living in Singapore, Bright Ong, and a performer who was in the festival from Korea, Haemin Han. And the three of us just kept a dialogue going, even though we'd gone back to our separate homes. And each week we'd meet up and we'd collaborate and we'd exchange ideas. And then eventually this became the Borders project. It's called Borders because we realized that each of us had like a significant border in our countries. We have a really important one right now, and so do they. And we just kept exploring what the different borders are in our lives, the physical ones, the ones that, are invisible, intangible. And we just kept playing with that. We kept putting creative exercises and questions to each other. And from that, we have a show, thankfully, in this day and age, which is really, really great to be working on. And the Borders project, it's in its first phase, let's say. And in Korea, on Friday, we have a presentation to an invited audience, which is it's great. So we kind of rehearse online, and we come up with live stream interactions and dialogues, and we've been playing with different styles of theatre, from puppet making or puppetry and object theatre, and just different types of writing. Yeah, it's been really, really fun to do.
Ooh, great.
So yeah, it's great to be in a performance at the end of the week.
Yeah, that's lovely. So are you performing yourself through Zoom, or how's that going to work?
Yeah, it's going to be through Zoom. It'll be a little bit different. We've kind of been spending a lot of time exploring technology, and thankfully the other guys are much more efficient at technology than I am. So I've been learning loads through them and the different ways you can actually create characters and just create theatre. Even though there's only going to be one actor physically in the space, we'll be projected in different ways and on different objects, which has been really fun working out.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what gives and what the audience reckon of what we have so far.
Great. So phase 1 is this work in progress that ends, that's this week, the end of this week. And then presumably you're hoping to move it on to a further phase. Do you see a time when all three of you will be in a performance space together, or do you think there'll always be an element of zoomed in performance?
At the moment, we've had to adapt to Zoom performances, because when we were talking about it at the very start, we had imagined something, along the lines of we travel to one area and workshop, whichever country it would be. That's not on the table at the moment, but we would still, I don't know what phase it's going to be, but we do still hope to get everyone in the one place to present what we have. In the meantime, though, we've realized there's lots of things that we can do in our separate spaces.
Yeah.
We'll see how this first one gets on in Korea, but I already have ideas of bringing it to audiences in Ireland and seeing what can be done, with what we have at the moment. But hopefully someday the three of us will be in the same space at the same time.
It's the timing of it is incredible, that you were able to travel there at all this year was amazing, but also that the whole project is about borders at a time when all of a sudden our borders are so obvious, and that we're so much more aware of the borders between each country and even between individuals in this like zoomed, socially distant kind of world. To have a project that has very organically come out to be about borders, physical land borders, at a time when we feel like everything is a border almost. It's amazing how art imitates life, or vice versa.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's a huge element of that. Yeah, where your question, oh well, actually it's not just this border, there's another border here, and what about the border that's between even yourself and myself, and how does technology aid that or work against it? The borders that theatre have to work against nowadays, and what they wouldn't have. Yeah, there's lots of it. Yeah, it's absolutely true. They're everywhere the more you dig into it.
Yeah, but there is, as you say, it can help in ways that we hadn't even contemplated 4 months ago. It's amazing how quickly we adapt. So you're working on loads of things actually at the moment, Oisin. Tell me about the tiny shows with Branner and Boggled.
Yes, Boggled. I'm really excited about Boggled as well, because Boggled is a show that is still in its very early stages. It's still in its ideas phase, but it's all about the wonder and magic of Irish boglands. And me being from Offaly, I'm never too far away from a bog. And that's the case for anywhere in Ireland. And I just, for a while, I've wanted to explore the Irish bogs and characters that can be really, really rich in those areas, and the landscape and the life that exists around bogs. I think it's really rich in potential for creating a drama around. And I'm so delighted to be able to be workshopping that in Branner HQ in September, hopefully, touch wood. And that's great. So the tiny shows will give us a few days in the space to just put the ideas onto their feet, and hopefully have a few people in there to feedback on what they're seeing and help move the process onwards.
Yeah, cool. Well, there's the bogs are such a fascinating, from all the things that have been unearthed in the bogs, everything from butter to actual humans. There's a lot of cool stuff there. That's really exciting, and that would be for young audiences as well.
Yeah, that's for young audiences. I think the tiny show residency will help us figure out what, to focus what age group it's for, and what way to kind of work the material towards, because I actually got to test out some stuff, having chats with children in Charleville National School in Offaly. I did a Boggled workshop through a YPCE bursary from the Arts Council last year. So that's the young people, children, an education
Yeah.
bursary, basically. And that was great to just go in there and spend time just coming up with stories, playing with like different dramatic games, and then just hearing their thoughts on bogs, what they'd written about bogs. And then I thought, well, actually, yeah, let's make a show where the backdrop is the bog, you know?
Yeah, that's great. That'll be really interesting to see how that develops. Where did you, at what point did you decide, because you do a lot of work for young audiences, and Marty Moncrief, the Teddy Bear Thief, which we mentioned, was also for young audiences. In fact, the teddy bear that we used for, the big wooden teddy bear we used to promote that show around the streets of Galway, is still living in my office in the Town Hall Theatre.
Yes.
He's been on his own for a long time now, but he's still there.
Good.
What
Brilliant.
brought you to making theatre for young audiences?
It's funny because so I've been doing theatre for about 10 years now, since I went to college in NUIG. I've been like, I got stuck into the drama society and did the masters and everything. And I did a show at the Galway Arts Festival called The Adventures of Shay Mouse, which was a family play. And performing that all those years ago, I think it was a long time ago, I think 2014 maybe. And I just really loved the energy of performing to family audiences and the honesty of the feedback. You know, it was a really great first kind of interaction with young audiences. And a few years later, I was in a Barnstorm theatre show, and Barnstorm are in Kilkenny, and they make loads of amazing theatre for young audiences. But I suppose in between that time, I had still been working with with young people, just not in that capacity. I would have been a drama tutor or a facilitator. I spent a lot of time in Barrettstown, which is a charity in Kildare for children with serious illnesses, doing loads of creative activities. But I think a turning point for me anyways, where I realized I absolutely love theatre for young audiences, was at the Babero Festival in Galway a couple of years back. I did a mentorship there, and that opened me up to the whole world of theatre making for young audiences. I got to see shows from all over the world there that were just of such a quality. Like, I absolutely adored them, and they really inspired me. And from that point I said, well, actually, I'd like to make theatre for young audiences. I don't necessarily just want to be cast in one whenever the opportunity comes up. I actually might have some ideas to put into play and see if there's a team that want to come on board for it. And that's how Marty Moncrief started. I was delighted that we got to go into the Galway Theatre Festival with it. And then as I was developing it, I just thought, well, actually, why not come up with a theatre brand for theatre for young audiences? And that's how Beluga Theatre got set up. And since then I've just realized that performing for young audiences, trying to come up with shows that are relevant and can, you know, entertain but also challenge or inspire young audiences is just a great thing to be doing, personally anyways.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned the honesty of young audiences, and I think that's probably something that is a little bit different in making work for young audiences. They are always they'll keep you to the pin of your collar, you know. There's very little you can hide behind. If something isn't fully developed or doesn't make sense or they don't like it, they'll tell you, which I would imagine is both terrifying and also really useful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it is definitely terrifying if not going according to plan, or if they're not buying you. Basically, if you do a show and it's off, or it's, you know, there's some false bits in it, you're going to know about it very, very soon, which is great. You know, it kind of brings up the integrity of what you want to do, because you definitely want to inspire, or you want to engage with the young audiences. So when it works, it's great, and you do know if it's working or if it's turning against you. And then if it's turning against you, you just have to work with that and kind of see, you know, where that's going to go. But it's you know, the feedback you get is really, it's great. You know, I love performing or putting on theatre in general. You know, I love that exchange between audiences and with the performance. But with there, it's like it's heightened. Ros Dixon, who would have been teacher, a drama teacher and English professor in NUIG. We had her when I was in first year in Galway. She said theatre is live, dangerous and immediate. And that was a really good kind of phrase to kind of lock myself into what theatre is. But then when you're doing it with young audiences, it's like the intensity, it just goes up even more. Yeah. It's definitely live, it's hella dangerous, and it's immediate because you're going to know straight away.
Yeah.
So it's a nice thing to kind of just be aware of. Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously, like if a show has had an impact on, young audiences, it's great. It's really rich. It's just a really great thing to happen. And if, let's say if I hear a parent will tell me maybe a couple of weeks after that, such a character or such a thing that happened in it is now in their child's new story in their back garden, but it's part of something else. It just helps to kind of highlight the importance of theatre and how it helps, trigger imaginations or creativity. Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you, Oisin. It's been great chatting to you. I've enjoyed it immensely, and I'm delighted to hear of all the projects you have on the go. They're all really different, but they're all really exciting. So I will be paying attention to Beluga Theatre and all the projects you're working on over the next while, and hopefully we will see the Little Beach House on stage sooner rather than later.
Yes. Yeah, we will at some point. And thanks for the chat, Sorcha. Really great to talk about all these projects and have a chat about theatre. So thank you.